everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, brought to you by Roughneck Stars and Icarus FC, as always, and we are, of course, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network. I am your interim host, Mika Burrell. You're probably used to the sultry sounds of a certain Philip Baki, but yeah, like I said, I'll be hosting for a little while now, and we'll get into it in a minute why that is, and I'm sure a lot of you already know. So you'll just have to rock with me for the time being, and of course with my co-host, Christian Canales. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You nailed that intro. Good job.
I think I got the order messed up, but that's okay. As long as we shout out the sponsors, we're good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm hosting for the meantime, and it's obviously a great honor. Usually I'm on the opposite end of the questions and such tonight. But of course, Phil and his wife, Erica, have just welcomed a baby girl into the world. So he is taking some much deserved paternity leave. And I mean, Christian, you're the other girl dad on the pod. So what is Phil probably going through right now? Like, has he slept? Is that a thing?
Yeah, probably not too much, especially if I think last time we checked they hadn't made it home yet. So those hospital rooms are not the best. So between everything going on and the questionable comfort of the amenities there, not a lot of sleeping going on. But it's from everything we know, it sounds like he's happy and everyone's doing okay. So that's all that matters really. The rest will come later.
For sure. And I'm hoping that we can try and keep the hashtag content train going without Phil. We'll try our very best because you, the listeners, deserve it. But I mean, a little bit of admin at the top of the show. Of course, like I said, we are Seriously Loco, and usually we've got Phil here hosting for us. But if you're finding us for the first time, obviously, thank you for listening. You can find us pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Google Play, I think even Amazon now. So just anywhere that you listen to podcasts, subscribe to Seriously Loco, and we try to put out an episode at least once a week. And we're also on all the social media platforms, of course, the most active being Twitter. So you can follow us over there at Seriously Loco. If you want to support us even more than just listening and following, we do have a Patreon as well, where we put up some written content here and there. I probably will be trying to keep that afloat as well for the time being. But yeah, for just $2 a month, you can follow us, and any money that we make from Patreon goes right back into the show, into paying our hosting costs and all that. So we just do it for the passion of the game and for El Paso Locomotive FC. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Obviously, it's been a crazy past couple weeks for Locomotive. But before we get into that, Christian, let's start it off with a Christian's question. Let's have a little bit of fun, get loose. It's weird without Phil, so let's try to keep things as normal as possible. You got a question for us tonight?
I do, and thinking about everything that's on with the team, I am curious, what has been your most significant injury that you've ever had?
Oh, wow. So so when I was maybe like 8 years old, I think I had just gotten a Razor scooter, which, like, those were the shit back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And I made a very poor decision to go down a very steep hill, and I had just got the Razor scooter, and of course I didn't really know what I was doing. And I went down this really steep hill at a park, and I landed on both knees and my elbow and completely scratched them up. And yeah, my uncle had to go run to the pharmacy to get some bandages and stuff. So he was laughing at me at first because he didn't realize how serious it was until he saw me like bleeding. So probably that, but I've been pretty lucky since then. I haven't broken any bones or anything like that, knock on wood. But that's always the one I think of because I still have like scars from it. So yeah, I guess I've been lucky in that regard because that's a pretty typical, I think, childhood injury. So
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed. Your most significant injury was fixed by Band-Aids.
Yes. I've never had to have stitches or anything. I've been lucky, and again, knocking on the wood here. But what about you? Have you had? So I'm assuming you had something more significant.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. When and I was in seventh or eighth grade. I don't remember which one anymore. I had a pretty serious head injury actually.
Oh my god.
Um, and there's a lot of context, and backstory. I'll try and keep it as concise as possible. But essentially, for whatever God knows what reason, they weren't letting us play with balls at recess. Like they took away our basketballs and soccer balls and footballs. Like we're being something.
Uh-huh.
So we had resorted to playing. We're playing Red Rover. Um,
Oh, here we go.
I was I'm a pretty small guy, and I didn't really hit my growth spurt until like sophomore year of high school, so I was even smaller as like a seventh grader. And so we were playing Red Rover, and we're all linked up, and for whatever reason, one of my friends decide, they sent him over or whatever, and he comes running, and he thought it would be funny to, instead of like trying to like run through our arms, he like came like right at me. Um, and this was on blacktop,
Oh god.
and from what I can remember, I didn't. I remember it happening, and I assume that I went a couple of inches in the air and just fell back and landed on my head. And next thing you know, I'm in the nurse's office. I don't remember getting to the nurse's office.
Oh my god.
Um, and this might just be a time thing now, not necessarily that I lost consciousness, but I remember after the nurse's office, I remember being at the hospital. And I got a CAT scan, and I had fractured my skull.
Oh my
Um,
god, dude.
I had a skull fracture, and there was a, I don't remember all the medical terms, but basically there's like a film around your brain.
Mm.
Between like the skull and the brain, there's like a membrane there that had a small tear in it as well. So I was put on heavy antibiotics because they were worried about that getting like infected somehow,
Mm.
and getting like a infection in my brain. And
Casual.
I'm pretty sure that I was like bed house ridden for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. I had to stay at home because I couldn't. They didn't want any sort of you know activity,
Oh my
so that my
god.
my explode in my brain or something. I don't know. But yeah, I was. It was that was probably the most traumatic injury that I've had, and I think probably more traumatic than a lot of people.
No, dude, I was expecting like a broken limb or something. Holy crap. Explains a lot though. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was a low
That's what
blow.
my wife likes to say too.
Well, goodness gracious, I'm glad you're okay now. But obviously you've got something in common with this squad right now because we're still suffering from a bunch of injuries. But it's been a crazy week, like I alluded to, a historical week in a lot of ways. Because I mean, first we sell Diego Luna to Real Salt Lake, or yeah, Real Salt Lake for a record fee between USL and MLS. Then we make history again by defeating Phoenix Rising for the first time ever. Phoenix nil, El Paso Locomotive 1 on the road at Wild Horse Pass this past Saturday. Give me your quick takes. I mean, what did you make of the game, and how significant is this result for Locomotive?
Yeah, I mean, we went straight into the depths of hell and we conquered Satan. So, um, my brother was watching the game and he asked me too, kind of what were my feelings, and you know, the the play of the teams can be questioned. I don't think it definitely was not Phoenix's best game ever, nor was it ours.
Mm.
But you can't help but just be positive about this. There's so much to take from it. The fact that it was on the road. We beat Phoenix, like literally the albatross on our neck in the Western Conference. We've now beat every team in the Western Conference at least one time.
Yeah.
Um, so given the circumstance, roster, all that kind of stuff. You couldn't have asked for a better result. You go and you get 3 points, so it's only positive for me.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree. I think that as a football match, as a spectacle, maybe it wasn't the greatest. Phoenix certainly are struggling this season. There's just something that's not right about that club right now. And I say club rather than team because it does seem like some of the rot goes all the way to the top if you're paying attention at all to Phoenix Rising Twitter. And it's pretty hard not to because they've got a big fan base, to be fair. But yeah, I think we took advantage of Phoenix Rising that is not at their tip top best, and we were able to execute on the night with a Luna-less squad and a Lucho Solignac-less squad. Let's talk about the lineup because in a lot of ways it's what we expected, but like I said, Solignac, he was meant to lead the line and comes off at the very last minute before kickoff, and Noe Coutinho has to check in. What did you make of the lineup overall and his seeming exclusion, Lucho's, at the last second?
I have no idea what to make of Lucho. I thought that maybe it was like because of the wording that the commentators used. They said like an ineligibility.
Yeah.
So I thought that maybe he ended up with accumulation that somehow flew under the radar. But that's not the case because I think it's seven for accumulation because that's where Borelli is at.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucho's only at 4, I think maybe 5. So I have to make of that, but the rest of the lineup looked good. All things considered. Sebastian Velasquez back for the first time since April, I believe. And even then, for the first time since like the first match of the season, he came on in April for about 15 minutes and then came off again at the end. But it was good to see, Nick Hines getting a start. Boehner, still filling in at right back for the time being. So, we're being stretched thin, but everyone, we have at least one person that can sit in every spot. So
yeah,
we just have to make do.
Yeah, I think make do is exactly the way that I would put it as well. No idea what the circumstances were that led to Lucho Solignac being left out at the last minute, and we did get a lot of questions about it, so I'm sorry that we don't have that information at the moment. Trust me, we checked our normal channels for some kind of insight, but yeah, a friend of the pod, Harry, he had shared like a snippet from a USL Championship rulebook saying that essentially teams need to submit their squads, I think within like 24 or 48 hours or something like that for that player to be eligible. And so maybe, I mean, I'd be shocked if it was some kind of administrative like error like that, but at the same time, weirder things have happened. So I don't know. He was definitely meant to come back after being suspended for that red card. So I have to say, once Solignac was excluded, I maybe had a little less faith in what we were able to do on the night, but I thought Noe Coutinho actually played very well, as did some of the other youngsters. But Christian, you also mentioned Sebastian Velasquez, a player that I think we and a lot of fans are looking to make an impact now that Diego Luna is gone, and be that kind of maverick in the middle of the park, the dribbler, the flair player now, but also someone who provides goals and assists. What'd you make of Seb's first game back in quite a while? Did he look rusty? Does he look healthy? What'd you make of it overall?
He definitely looks healthy. He was moving around. He didn't seem slow. I think for whatever I can't put my finger on the reason, but I think that he wasn't able to and maybe the reason is that it's his first game back in months, but he didn't stand out too much, but he also didn't stand out in a negative way either. He just had a decent night. And it was just good to see him back out there again. I'm interested to just see what happens in the future. We didn't get a lot of of him and Dylan um, together at the beginning of the season, but going forward, I would imagine, barring any sort of midfield signing, that those are two of the first names on the team sheet every week, so long as they're healthy. So I'm interested in what that relationship is going to develop into throughout the year.
For sure, yeah, I think that's fair. I think Seb did look better than when he came back the first time. I mean, he was just dribbling around and dropping really deep, actually, into midfield to help link the play, which I thought was interesting because for a player that's just coming back from injury, you would think they wouldn't want to maraud the pitch as much as he did. So big ups to Seba for that as well. I think that he was really crucial to us keeping the ball for as much as we did. And, at the end of the day, ball possession is 59% in favor of a Paso Locomotive. So, I mean, the numbers don't lie. And he was certainly crucial to that, as were, of course, Richie and Dylan and Andrew, who also came back into the back line for Andre Aguiluth. But let's talk about the first half. I mean, again, we said at the top of the show, it wasn't really like the best football, but there were definitely chances. And there was also a lot of ill discipline, I think, marked this affair. And pretty soon after the whistle, Greg Hurst goes into Foxy with a pretty high elbow and gets the first yellow card of the game. And at the end of the day, there were 8 yellow cards and a red card. So 4 for each team, and then the red card for Manuel Madrid, which we'll get onto. But what'd you make of that? I mean, it was very tense and kind of like needly almost, if that can be used to describe this. I mean, did you think that was a game plan, or this was just two teams kind of like off their normal football game and just being very physical?
Yeah, no, I mean it felt, especially looking back, it seemed to me like that must have been part of the game plan, is to get physical, and we've seen that before with a lot of teams. I think that's how a lot of teams try to deal with us, because we're so good at moving the ball around so quickly. I think that, being physical and disrupting that flow is a very smart way, to deal with that, and I imagine that was part of it. Maybe the one thing you could ask of as an opposing coach, the one thing you could ask of your team is to maybe be a little bit more smart about it and not so deliberate as some of these Phoenix fouls were. Because I mean, for everything you can say about the ref, most of his decisions were pretty easy to make. I don't think there were a lot of calls that someone would have made differently.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there was an element of intention to the robustness of some of the challenges. I think sometimes maybe in the Mark Lowry era there was this kind of, not reputation, but maybe just a little bit of hint of like El Paso Locomotive are a soft touch. Like they will want to just stay on the ball, but if you try to smash them, like they will maybe wilt under that. And to be fair, I think we were pretty resilient on Saturday towards kind of that physicality and dished it out ourselves as well. I mean, smartly or not smartly, I guess, is the debate you can have about it. But it wasn't all just physical play. There were some chances. We saw this one chance from Noy Coutinho. He stung the palms of the Phoenix goalkeeper, Ben Lunt. Dylan Mares, he had that really great dribbling move where he hit the post. Gomez was also shooting across the goal. With all these chances flying in early doors, early 20, 30 minutes, but not actually going in the net, did you feel like this was going to be one of those nights where we have the bulk of the possession, get a lot of shots on net, but just aren't clinical enough? Because we were missing, to be fair, Lucho Soloniak, our most productive player. Or did you think the breakthrough would come eventually?
You know, just historically speaking, it felt like it was going to be one of those nights, because it always is against Phoenix.
Fair.
I think I don't remember if it was the playoff game or one of the regular seasons before, but the game we played where Eric Dick was in goal as opposed to Zach Lubin.
Yeah.
He played the game of his life. I distinctly remember the total like disdain I had for him because he played so well. Because nothing we could do was going in the net. So it did feel like it was going to be like that, and considering where the one goal did come from, you could say it was like that. We get you know we get a call, and that's the only reason that we score this match.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, yeah, before we get on to the goal, I mean, obviously, like I said, we had those chances, but at the other end of the pitch, it wasn't like Evan Newton didn't have any work to do. He had that brilliant save from Kalistri in the 33rd minute, and Kalistri cut a really frustrated figure on the night, had a bunch of chances to himself and just couldn't finish. Obviously, I mean, I think it's a brilliant save from Evan Newton, and obviously we end up getting the clean sheet. Do you think he keeps us in this game despite our dominance in the numbers? Do you think? Because I think it was on a knife's edge at least going into that second half, and he definitely set the tone with that save. But I'm wondering if you agree.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes maybe I feel like we're all Locomotive.
Yeah.
But then something happens, and we were getting exposed very often. And I think it just had to do with the speed of Phoenix. I think it had to do with their athleticism. Because who was it? No, he was number 6. And a J or NJ or
Njai, yeah, Njai.
Njai
Had a good game, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just absolutely bursting down the sidelines every chance that on every counterattack, and we were getting beat, and so there was a Phoenix player to be found pretty much any time that they tried to counter. So yeah, big credit to Evan Newton. I think that had this been a March match, with the squad playing the way they were in March, this could have been like a six goal game for Phoenix if Evan hadn't come into form yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it seems like we talk about it every week of how far Evan Newton has come in such a relatively short period of time as far as his performances, and yet another clean sheet for him. Makes 3 saves on the night. Also had above 50 touches. So I mean, he was well and truly involved, as your keeper needs to be against Phoenix Rising. But getting into the second half, I think we were happy. You and I were talking that we were happy to get into that second half at 0-0 because it started to be a little bit fraught. We were giving up some space in midfield, like you said, and Jai was running riot against some of our less athletic players, shall we say. But we get into that second half, and I think both teams are still trying to push a little bit. About 20 minutes goes by, and suddenly Josue Aaron Gomez finds himself clean through in the box, and Manuel Madrid pulls him down, and the referee is pretty unequivocal in pointing to the penalty spot. At Ramancol on Twitter says, "Is that a red card or not? It's a PK for sure, and I also don't think Rising was scoring with 12 players." So, do you agree with Harry there? Red card, penalty, what is your take?
Yeah, I mean, it's a foul, 100 times out of 100. But that was a harsh red card.
You think so? Okay.
Very, very harsh red card. I'm not going to pretend to know, the laws of the game word for word for that situation. But subjectively speaking, it's a soft foul. Okay. I don't think that he was deliberately trying to bring him, to pull him down. Was he impeding him? Absolutely, but I don't feel like he should have been disqualified from the game for that foul.
Yeah, well, and the Phoenix Rising players were incensed at that decision, to be fair, so they'd agree with you there. In real time, I thought it was harsh as well, and I was like, wow, that's a wild red card, and he was so emphatic about it, the referee was. But looking back at it, I think I may have changed my mind a little bit because I watched it a couple times back, and Gomez is cleaner through than I realized in watching it live. In that, I mean, there are other players level with him, but in front of him, there's absolutely no one. And so I think you could make the case that that is a dog-so, if you will, denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity. And, by the letter of the law, you have to be sent off for that. So, yeah, it's one of those things where if that gets called against us, we'd be absolutely fuming. But maybe technically it is the right call. So I don't know. I think, yeah, I'm in two minds about it. I mean, watching it live, I was like, that's crazy, but I'll take it. Watching it later, I'm like, I mean, yeah, he's clean through. And Manuel Madrid pulls on his shirt or on his shoulder, and off he pops. But anyway,
after just coming on too, he was a late sub as well.
That's right. Yeah, he didn't even start the game, and that's also kind of the funny thing about it is like he as a sub wasn't up to the pace of the game, and so I think that mentally and physically like did him in, and why he was able to be passed so easily by Josue, and had to be forced into that challenge. So just unlucky for him, but I mean, it's a huge chance for us, and we've been here before. I mean, think back to the Western Conference Final, that penalty kick, Josue Aaron Gomez, a couple years back. And this is a really interesting moment of the game because Dylan Mahrez and Josue are in conversation about who's going to take it. And Dylan, you can tell that he's insisting that Josue takes it. And you were saying in our private chat that you were feeling sick about him stepping up for this. But he does end up putting it away. He goes for placement to the right of Ben Lunt, and it just squeezes in. So what did you make of that entire sequence of Dylan giving the kick to Josue and Josue ultimately scoring it?
It's just so interesting because we know that, Gomez is a very mental player, I think that a lot of his performance is based on, emotion and how he's feeling about himself. And, you could forgive him for being, in his head about having to do this.
Yeah.
It's the last time that we were there is when, the incident, happened. Was it at that stadium, or did they have?
I believe we were on the road. Yeah.
Well, no, they were in their old stadium,
yes,
actually.
in their old stadium, yes. So, not at Wild Horse Pass, but it was in Phoenix, yes.
Yeah. So maybe that had something to do with it too. He was feeling a little bit, dissociated from that past situation because it wasn't exactly in the same place. But it was nerve-wracking, for me. I had to do nothing except sit and watch it. So, but it was very nerve-wracking. But in the end, he gets the job done.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just really interested in of course, I'm happy that he scores a goal, and I'm glad he got to exercise some demons, if you will, as Colin Deaver so cleverly put it on Twitter. But just seeing Dylan Mahrez purposely give him the chance, because you see this at the very top of the game, at the highest levels of the game, like superstars arguing over penalties, and it's just like cringe. But I mean, what do you think that says about the locker room, if anything? Like, am I making too much of it, or is this like, wow, these guys are really fighting for each other and they want to see each other succeed, or is it just like, you're probably just better placed to take this right now?
No, I mean, and I know from speaking with both of those players that they are two of like the most selfless, the most selfless minds in the locker room, and so I think that in my head the conversation was like, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it.
Probably, yeah.
But I think that when you spend as much time, with each other as these players do, that, I don't think it was by chance. I think that it was a very thought out decision from Dylan to have Aaron take this instead.
For sure, yeah. So, I mean, in the 71st minute, Josue Aaron Gomez puts us up 1-0 over Phoenix, and we have to weather a bit of a storm for the next 20-plus minutes because even though Manuel Madrid went off with that red card, Phoenix really came back with a vengeance, and it really felt to me like we were the ones playing down a man because we absolutely were getting battered. At least that's how I felt about it. I mean, did it feel that way to you in the last 20 minutes of wow, Phoenix are really trying to equalize and we might not hold on here, or did you think we'd see it out?
No, I was very unsure, especially because John was very stingy with his substitutions this match.
True.
We had the halftime sub for Velasquez that was, as far as we can tell, kind of like a minutes restriction kind of thing.
Yep.
But other than that, you don't get subs until the last 5 minutes of the match, and it's hot out there. and these guys are this wasn't a game that was easy. Like we said, we were getting caught out and having to run back and play catch up a lot on those counterattacks, and so we looked tired. In those last 20 minutes, we definitely looked tired, and as you had said, Phoenix was freshening up, and it was making me very nervous about, are we going to just get beat because we're, 2 steps too slow now?
Yeah, you made a good point about the substitutions because, like you said, I mean, Sebastian comes off at the half for Andre Aguiluth, and then we wait until the 84th minute to introduce some of the kiddos, so Diego Abarca comes on after scoring that absolute howitzer last week at the swap for his first professional goal. Diego Garcia as well. I mean, just Diego's for days at El Paso Locomotive. And then Martin Payares also in the 90th minute to just round things out and keep it close. We've talked a lot and we've been able to observe a lot the contributions that the academy players have made. I find it admirable, but I worry about the sustainability of it. And I think that the fans might actually be a little bit concerned with it too, because we got a lot of questions about signings and if we're making any and if we've heard of anything, which I'll just say right now, I'm sorry guys, but we don't know anything more than that Liam Rose's visa is still being processed and that the club is looking. But like I said, the academy, they've done very, very well, but what do you make of the fact that we keep having to put 3, 4, 5 academy players on the bench, and are we reaching a critical stage in the season where we need to add some more experienced depth?
Part of me wants to say, yes, this needs to happen, yesterday, but also taking a step back and me trying to be more reasonable with myself about it. We're also just in an unlucky spot with the international break too. Because if you think, we had 3 academy subs come on, or 3 academy kids play on Saturday between Noe, Diego, and Diego.
Right.
And we also have 3 players out on international duty right now. Cristiano, Eric, and Siobhan.
Yeah.
So not that those are all necessarily like for like, in every situation, but when all 3 of those players are back, our bench is not going to be full of academy players. So I think having those new signings is going to be helpful. But for the time being, we can make do. But once everyone comes back, we're still 1 injury away from being in the same boat that we're in right now. So important, but also in the grand scheme of things, we're not as shallow as it may appear.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, having 3 internationals out is quite a lot for a team at our level, and then of course the sale of Diego Luna does leave a pretty massive hole, but it does look worse than maybe it is once the international break is over. And side note, I think it's absolutely preposterous that international games are being played right now, but I digress. We should be watching the World Cup. Anyway, We had a question from @CoolFernie on Twitter, kind of along these lines. He said, "Do you think we sign another striker soon?" And I thought this question was really interesting because he called out a striker. I guess I didn't think that was a natural hole in the squad, and I'm wondering, Christian, what you think if we are to augment this squad for the second half of the season. Where do you think that should be? What positions do you think that should be?
I think we need some depth at center back, because I think that Yuma needs a break. uh, I think we clearly need a right back, because Siobhan is doing a good job, but I think that there may be players out there who maybe are more naturally suited for that. Same thing with Boehner. He does a good job, but he has done a good job there, several times for us in his career with us. But I think that there may just be a more concrete option there. And then of course, Anders been doing well, but some more depth for Richie as well. I think that those are the big ones. As far as the I think we're good.
Yeah.
Lucho, it's been a little more prominent because Lucho has missed 2 games now. But I think between Lucho and Aron, and I know that Francois is not a striker, and when Manny makes his return, whenever that may be, I think we have a good attacking core up there. For me, striker is not the priority, but more towards the back end of the field.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think for me, right back also sticks out just because I think, like you said, I think Siobhan has deputized there well. Boehner, of course, can do that job, although he tends to tuck in as like that auxiliary midfielder more than bomb on the way a Harry Brockbank used to do, or an Eda Borelli does on the other side. So right back is where I think we could maybe strengthen, as well as depth for Ryan, which, as I say these things, of course I think about Liam Rose, who could play one or both of those positions for us, but he has to actually join the team to do that. So we wait with bated breath for the Australian to join us, and hopefully other players as well, because I do think that the more the merrier, especially with the way that injuries have been and suspensions and international, playing, all of that plays into it. But for the time being, though, we just have to enjoy this really momentous victory over Phoenix Rising. A weakened Phoenix Rising, a Phoenix Rising in a little bit of turmoil that we're not used to seeing. But, we can only beat the teams that are in front of us. And that leaves El Paso Locomotive in 4th place in the Western Conference. Everyone around us has a lot of games in hand. We've played 16 games, and league leading Colorado Springs have only played 12. So the table's a bit misleading right now, but I will still take it, considering we were in the absolute basement when we first started the season. So I think it's a good place to be, and that's 7 wins, 3 draws, and 6 losses. So yeah, climbing up the table. And this has just really been a historic week for El Paso Locomotive. And after the disappointment against Hartford at home, which was a draw, but I think it was still disappointing given the level that we showed versus what they showed. This is a great way to bounce back. But Christian, what do you say we take a quick break, and then we'll talk about Detroit City FC, who we visit in the Motor City this weekend.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Seriously Loco. Mika here with Christian. Hopefully you guys have gotten used to me interim hosting by now. But anyway, let's talk about Detroit City FC. Christian, we go to the Motor City, to Keyworth Stadium this weekend on a game that is being televised nationally on ESPN. It's the first ever meeting between the two sides. What are your vibes for this one? I mean, it's another one of those like weird ones where we've never seen this team before, and this team is even new to the league to boot. So, what are you thinking about this?
I'm a little bit worried. I'm gonna be honest with you. They Detroit City is new to the league, new to us, but they have also been doing very, very well in this league. Um, I believe, well, they actually have the same amount of points as us. Or no, I think they have 25 points. We have 24 points, I should say. But their performance has been notable, and they, as far as I know, appear to be at full strength, and we are not. So there's a lot to be worried about here. And then exposure wise, unfortunate that this is the game that ESPN picked up.
We had a question about that actually from at HJ underscore the third on Twitter, and he says, with the game against Detroit City FC being on ESPN, and it's already a highly anticipated matchup before our rough start, what kind of impact do you see it having for USL Championship going forward in regards to national TV coverage? So, is this a big deal that it's on ESPN? Do you think that this will get eyes outside of these two fan bases to watch it and outside of USL fan bases to watch it? Or, I mean, is it just, something that you have to scroll very deep for to find it on the ESPN app? What do you make of this question?
No, I mean, I think that I'm not saying that either Locomotive or Detroit are going to gain several hundred fans from this match, but you know how it is. Any sports bar, no matter what's on, ESPN is the channel that's there, so there will definitely be more eyes on this match than anyone for either team before, considering Detroit was playing in a much significantly less covered league just months ago. And El Paso, this is our the first match that isn't on like a ESPN branch channel, whether it's ESPN Deportes or ESPN2, whatever. It's the ESPN. So I think that it is going to have eyes on it, and hopefully it's a good match. I would prefer El Paso wins 10-0, but
Same.
Hopefully it is something that's entertaining, because only good things can come from more people seeing and getting excited about USL.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of ratings it pulls. I mean, in higher echelons of the sport, TV money is like the big driver of growth and all of that in like Europe and what have you, and we just don't have that same kind of sponsorship and TV pool at this level. So I think this is a good step as far as exposure and getting more people interested, because it does seem like USL Championship is positioning itself to compete, with MLS for eyeballs. But let's talk a little bit about the actual football. I mean, looking at this Detroit City team, I mean, you could definitely see some comparisons. Like you mentioned, Christian, they are fourth in the Eastern Conference, very similar record to ours. And they have got a danger man of their own in Antoine Hopno with 5 goals and 4 assists for them. At the back, I think they have a really talented center back in Devin Amomensa. And yeah, they're just a very talented side that have adjusted quite well to USL Championship, it has to be said. There's some stats of note that I want to go through here, and I'll read them to you, Christian. You kind of tell me what you think this says about our chances and kind of what the matchup could be like, because I found these really interesting and kind of hard to pin down what I think about it. But Detroit City, they suffer the third highest ball losses in the league, second highest in the East, only to New York Red Bulls 2, who are, of course, an MLS 2 side that their goal is not to win, it's just to get experience. So they lose the ball a lot. And it looks like that was their undoing against Sac Republic last time out at home. Actually, lost the ball in a couple of bad areas and lost the game. But they are fifth in the league for crosses and second in the league for touches in the penalty area. Guess who's number one? Yeah, us. For touches in the penalty area. So, I mean, what do you make of this? To me, it's like this is going to be a really high-octane offensive match, but we might, I don't know, wilt under the pressure of a very raucous Keyworth Stadium. I don't know. What do you make of all these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we do a good job of holding on to the ball, I think that we it might be one of those games that's more of very contrary to how John likes to play, but it might be more about not letting them score than us scoring. So that they're not Detroit is not greedy with the ball. As long as we can be smart with it and take advantage of our chances, I think that that maybe this does have the possibility to not get out of control and not be as back and forth as some of the numbers might have it seem.
I think that's a really interesting comment you've made there, Christian, about not letting it get out of control, because I agree. I think that we have to take this thing out of the game early. Again, we're in front of a famously raucous crowd, like I said, at Keyworth, and I think that's something that Sacramento Republic did really well with scoring that absolute belter from Dami Aviator to open it up. You take the crowd out of that, and not to say that they will then get quiet or anything. They're amazing, amazing fans, and they sing the entire time. But if you put a little bit of doubt into Detroit City, they can be beaten at home. So I think that will be key, is keeping control, like you said. One thing that concerns me is that Detroit City play a 3-4-1-2 primarily. And we've spoken at length on this show about how we haven't had a definitive answer to a three at the back yet. On top of that, they are not afraid to go long if they need to. And we struggled with that at the beginning of the season. What do you make of those two prospects of contending with possibly a long ball if they feel that they can't get their foot on the ball enough for their liking, and this three at the back with some very talented players back there, among them Amu Mensah, who I mentioned?
Yeah, who are the teams that play with three that we've played against besides New Mexico?
San Antonio, I think San Diego Loyal, Oakland Roots maybe.
Maybe okay. I
A few.
think I remember that Oakland. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that hopefully we've just continued to evolve a little bit, and
Orange County actually, yeah, as well.
oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Hopefully we've evolved a little bit throughout the season, and Hutchinson seemed to have been a bit caught out early in the season by how willing teams were to go to the long ball. From the times that we'd spoken with him after matches, he flabbergasted that it was happening with the frequency that it was. So hopefully throughout the last 16 matches, he's been able to help the players figure out a way to contend with that. Because it can certainly be our undoing, as we've seen several times.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that Evan Newton has gotten better with retreating when he needs to and not leaving like these awkward spaces where he has to make harder decisions as far as coming to claim and playing out. He's become more conservative in his positioning, and I think everyone likes that, including Evan, to be fair. But yeah, I think it'll be a challenge. This is a game that Phil, our fearless founder, had marked out on the calendar, but now that the baby girl is here, I highly doubt he'll be in attendance. So we might have to just do a regular old watch along. We won't have any boots on the ground as we might have done had baby Baki stayed in the oven for a little bit longer, but that's okay. That's okay. We it is what it is. um, but yeah, I mean this is a huge one. How important do you think it is to win actually on the road, or is it just don't lose in this one?
No, I think that, we're past the don't lose phase of this season. Um, as we're smack dab in the middle now. As far as matches that we've played, there's some teams that are behind us in matches played, but we're halfway through our schedule, I believe. So, I think every game we have to be going for that 3 points, and that has to be the minimum as far as satisfaction with the results. Um, Even with everything that's going on with the roster and that kind of stuff, every game has to be a win. Um, I don't want to. I don't want anyone to get like complacent with where we are in the table right now because, like you mentioned, lots of teams have several games on us right now. So in any one week we'll end up back in ninth or 10th, if we take our foot off the gas. So I think that it is definitely a must win, and I think it would be huge to get a winning streak on the road against a very tough opponent.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it is about accumulating as many points as possible, and we did used to say like don't lose on the road, but it would be nice to get another big scalp. To be fair, I think Detroit City are a tough, formidable opponent, and after what we just did against Phoenix, I would hope that the confidence is flying high in the dressing room. Yeah, it's a big one, and let me ask you this, Christian. Kickoff is at 10 a.m., giving big Europe vibes, because I'm usually up at that time or before that during the European season, but it's a little bit weird to be up that early for USL. Are you going to, like, cook a big breakfast spread? Like, how are you going to celebrate this occasion? Because 10 a.m., that's wild. Like, I don't think this has ever happened before for us.
No, I don't think it has, and I don't know that I'm going to be watching this match because
What?
I will be celebrating other things. I'll be in California.
Oh, my
Um,
goodness. I forgot about that.
yeah, so kickoff for me is gonna be 9 o'clock.
Dear
Um,
Lord.
so I think that there will be a lot going on. I'll be trying to keep up, but I don't think I'll be actively watching, unfortunately.
I wonder if the club is having like a watch along, like breakfast bash or something.
No way,
Like,
they're opening up Union Draft House at 10 a.m.
yeah. I think you can serve alcohol at 10. I don't know.
I mean, it's a Saturday, so
Yeah. It's bizarre. I might try to make a thing of it and try to make like a nice breakfast for myself and some coffee and watch the match. But yeah, it's a big one. It'll be exciting. Don't know what to expect. And I think actually these teams are very well matched in a lot of ways. But assuming we can at least field Lucho Solaniak, I think we've got a shot. But Josue Aaron Gomez and Seba Velasquez and all those guys will have to give us their all as well as the academy kids, because I still think, I don't know if the international break's going to be over by then. Will it?
well, there are matches tomorrow still.
Okay.
So I highly doubt that John will ask of them to travel back, on Wednesday and
And then play,
have a training session on Thursday, fly out on Friday, and play on Saturday. So
yeah.
I think that that's a lot to ask. So unfortunately, I don't think that we're gonna get those three back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's right. Well, we got to get into the little segment here where we talk about predictions. What do you reckon? Detroit City hosting El Paso Locomotive. What do you think?
There are goals to be had in this game. Detroit has not kept a clean sheet since the end of April. Um, and, Hapano is a force to be reckoned with. So I think that both teams will score. I'm going to be positive. I don't think I've had a positive prediction on this show in quite a while. So I'm going to say 3-1 Locomotive.
Wow, 3-1. Okay. I feel like it's been a bit too since we've had like a throttling of another side by more than 2 goals. So I like that. I'm going to be a little more conservative though, because I do think that there is this psychological aspect to this match that we've not quite contended with yet, which is, again, like, I'm making a lot of it because there is a lot to make of it, which is Keyworth Stadium and those raucous fans. And I don't think it's any coincidence that ESPN wants to put this on the marquee channel because it is quite an atmosphere. So I will go 2-1. I do think we're a good footballing side and just that bit better than them, honestly. I'm convinced of that at this point, and I think they can be gotten at. Some of their results recently have been kind of meh. They did just come off that loss at home to Sacramento Republic, so I think Western Conference is always going to match up well against the East. And so 2-1 it is for me. And I'm hoping Lucho will be back and he'll score a goal. Did you give me a goal scorer?
I did not. I'm going to say... Be a little bit, well, not that unorthodox, but be a little unorthodox in that I'm going to pick defender. I'm going to pick Foxy to get on the end of a set piece in this one.
Okay. I like that. He almost did get on one against Phoenix and was shoved in the back, which...
Yeah, should have been another penalty call, too.
Yeah, arguably, yeah. So I like that. I think Foxy's due. But we will just have to see on Saturday. Like we said, guys, we are kicking off against Detroit City at 10 a.m. local time on Saturday, June 18th. So make sure that your coffee makers are already programmed. I'm going to program mine the night before. I act like 10 a.m. is 4 a.m., but it might as well be. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know if we can do a watch along that early because it did not occur to me that it was so early and you won't be around. So maybe we'll just have to hang out on Twitter. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what we do about that. But that's been it for Seriously Loco, I think. I hope I did Phil some justice with my first time hosting the show. And Christian, thanks for hanging out tonight and being patient with me while we try to figure all this out. But yeah, like we said at the top of the show, we've been Seriously Loco. Please subscribe, like, rate, review, all that good stuff. We certainly appreciate it. It helps us grow the podcast. But yeah, until next time, we'll see you on the other side of the Detroit City game. But as Phil would say, stay loco.